Not all acne is the same, and if you treat it like it is, you can actually make it worse. Hey beauties, my name is Kristen and I'm a licensed esthetician of 7+ years, and recently I have been doing this Skincare Explained series here on YouTube to expand on topics like this and share them with you in ways that are easy to understand. So in my last episode, we chatted about the science behind acne breakouts and why they occur in the skin, and in this series within a series, now in today's episode, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the different types of acne, as well as how to identify them and why it is so important to treat these differently in the skin. If you're pro watching, then make sure you attend my in-person training coming up. The applications are open, so click the link in my description box and I hope to see you there. Ooh, I'm feeling good. It was my birthday last week. I took a little break from filming and now I feel refreshed and ready to dive into this topic with you. Referring back to the science behind acne breakouts, we know that acne lives and starts within the pore. And so with all the different types of acne, we know that that remains true. In this video, I want to break it down for you first by talking about the history behind identifying acne in the skin, and then laying it out in a way where you can identify the different types, and then we'll end it with potential treatment options, ingredients, and how I would approach this if it were me. Grab that pen and paper, be sure to hit the subscribe button and like this video. So I may have nerded out and found an article here on PubMed Central called A Comprehensive Review of the Acne Grading Scale. An official grading scale was developed in the 1950s and has morphed over time, and it can be done in different settings as well as in different countries. And so I don't want to talk about specific grades in this video. I know I had mentioned in another video that I would talk about the grades, and I know us professionals here in the US identify acne in the treatment room as grades 1, 2, 3, and 4, but this can be done differently, and I want this video to be able to relate to anybody watching. So just know that I am going to be breaking this down in a way that you can identify this no matter what grading scale you're using, what country you're in. We are just going based off pure facts and what we're looking for in the skin. Reading this article, and the reason why I mentioned the history is because it's just giving me a better idea of what all these different scaling methods have identified in the skin. And so there's a couple things that I want you to look out for. Is number one is the number of lesions or pimples in your skin. And some of these grading scales, they have from 0 to 25, from 25 to 50, from 50 to 100. Depending on how many you have on your skin will kind of put you in a category of like in the intensity of acne that you have. The other category that professionals and medical professionals look at is where it occurs on the body. So either if it's on the face, on the back, on the chest, they're looking at where this is occurring and also the number that it is occurring at. The next thing is they are looking at what type of lesions, and that is what I'll dive a little bit more into in a little bit here, but they're looking at the type of acne that it is and what characteristics it has in the skin and how it also affects the skin. And that's the last category, is it's going to identify not only the current state of the acne, but also the aftermath of the acne and what consequences come with that type of acne, whether it's pigmentation or scarring. And also, disclaimer, some type of acne needs medical attention or needs deeper treatment. Us as licensed professionals, at least here in California, we're not able to prescribe medication or diagnose you with anything. Be sure to seek out a doctor for further recommendations and treatment. Now let's dive into the different types of acne lesions. These are going to be 3 buckets that I'm going to put these types into versus talking about grades, just to make it more simple. So the first bucket is going to be in regards to acne with congestion, and these are non-inflamed. Typically, you might see these types of acne referred to as blackheads and whiteheads. The reason why blackheads and whiteheads are different is because the congestion that is in the pore, and we talked about this in the last video about there being a sticky plug that forms in the pore. When it is exposed to oxygen, it turns a black color, and so that is why it is called a blackhead. Now with the whitehead, it means that there's a little layer of skin over the top, and therefore it is still covering that plug that has formed, and it doesn't oxidize it, and that's why it stays that whitish color. And like I said, these are non-inflamed, so they should not be red or irritated, but there's still concerns, right? There's still a lot of these pop up in the clients that I work on, and I'm sure all of you have dealt with some sort of clogged pore in your skin unless you are an extremely dry skin type or you are a normal skin type. A common mistake that I noted here was that if we are dealing with congestion, we tend to over exfoliate. And so I want to encourage you, if you're watching and you're dealing with a lot of blackheads and congestion in your pores, sometimes you think more is better, more exfoliating, when actually it can do the opposite, and it can actually overstrip the skin, and then your skin's going to overcompensate and create more oil production and therefore give you more congestion. So we don't want to do that, and we'll talk a little bit more about ingredients in the later part of this video, but that is the first bucket when you think of acne, is congestion. Second bucket is going to be your inflamed acne. So in technical terms, things like papules and pustules in the skin, these can be identified by red bumps, whiteheads with inflammation. That's kind of the key difference, I guess, between papules and pustules, is that when I think of pustules, I think of pus, and that's the whitehead that you see. It is pus that is formed within that pore, and it is because there's just more bacteria and inflammation going on. So the common mistake I find with treating this is that if you do this too aggressively, it can actually worsen the inflammation, and that is kind of what I go over in my skincare training with you pros watching, is how to approach this and not leave more problems along with treating acne, especially inflamed acne. And for those of you who are watching this for your own skin, I think one of the biggest things that I suggest to my clients is the no picking rule. Unless a pustule is at a point where it is kind of self imploding, then I highly encourage you to not pick, not pop these, and just let it do its thing. And again, I'll chat more about ingredients in the next part of the video, but I love using a spot treatment now on whiteheads instead of going in there and trying to squeeze it all out, because what can happen is actually bacteria in that pus can spread. And then with the papules, since they are still embedded in the skin and they're kind of more of a harder bump or plug in the skin, they can be a bit harder to extract from the skin. And by trying to extract these, it can actually disrupt your skin even more. Just know that sometimes you need to be a bit more gentle with this than you think. All right, now the last category is that cystic/severe acne. It can be deep and painful in the skin, and it can be referred to as nodules and cystic acne. And so what is occurring in the skin is, again, it's that inflammation, but at a much deeper level. And I'm gonna put a diagram here of what a nodule and a cystic acne looks like, and you can just see there is just an explosion, like I mentioned in that first video, about the bacteria mixed with the dead skin cells and the production of oil. All of that together creates like this kind of explosion in a sense. And so when you think of cystic acne, I want you to think of that explosion occurring in the pore, and it has spread in the deeper layers of the skin, and that's why it can feel hot to the touch. It can be very uncomfortable, and these are not acne lesions that can be just extracted from the skin in a facial. Common mistake I noted was treating this like a surface level acne won't work. So the treatments that I would recommend to a client dealing with blackheads absolutely would not be the same treatment I would suggest for someone with cystic acne. I think people in the past have thought, when I exfoliate, I need to use something more aggressive, more of a scrub type of an exfoliator. And I highly suggest, if you're dealing with cystic acne that is painful or hot to the touch and is under in that deeper layer of the skin, to not use any harsh scrubs on the face, again, to prevent that irritation from worsening, because it is occurring under the skin. So even applying too much pressure or movement in that area can essentially move that inflammation around and that infection around, because that's essentially what it is a big infection in the deeper layer of the skin. So now that we know the different types of acne, and I did mention to you I would talk about a few ingredients toward the end of this video. And so the number one ingredient I want you to pay attention to is benzoyl peroxide. And it is that ingredient that is meant to target those C. acne bacteria. I explained that more in my last video, what C. acne is. Very well known, more so in inflamed acne and cystic acne that is just festering in that pore. Using a benzoyl peroxide is going to help reduce the amount of C. acne bacteria. If you're dealing with more congestion in your skin, blackheads, the whiteheads, salicylic acid, 100% one of my favorite ingredients for more oily skin. Just know that it can be a little drying, so be sure to still hydrate the skin and use something that is ideally oil-free or non-comedogenic, something that's not going to clog your pores, of course. And for those of you dealing with whiteheads, you might want to consider using an AHA as well, paired with a BHA, because you do have that top layer on that pustule. And so in order to kind of disintegrate that top layer and allow the acne to raise to the top and release that plug that is formed, you want to tackle that top layer versus you just popping it. And I know you've all probably done it. I know I've done it, where I've popped a whitehead too soon and you hear that snap sound because you're popping that layer of skin. And that's what we want to avoid, because the more we disrupt the skin that way, it can create more inflammation and potentially lead to more scarring. I love using the Skin Script blemish control spot treatment, glycolic and salicylic acid. So it's actually providing both of those in one product, because again, we're removing that top layer as well as penetrating into the pore with that salicylic acid. Another popular ingredient to look out for is azelaic acid. It's in a sense creating a little more balance to that microbiome, which we know is important when it comes to preventing acne, is just having that healthier balance of microorganisms on the skin. And another ingredient to consider are retinoids. I know, at least for me, I have a little bit of sensitivity when it comes to retinoids, but for you, that could be the solution. Again, talk to your esthetician or your dermatologist. And for those of you dealing with more severe acne, the cystic nodules in the skin, most likely should be seeking out an acne specialist or a dermatologist, and you may be prescribed a topical antibiotic or an oral antibiotic, and that essentially is going to help just reduce the amount of bacteria. I do have one client who's dealt with a lot of acne in her lifetime, and something she has been really loving is going to her naturopath doctor and receiving herbal supplements. She's been doing the acupuncture and just more holistic approaches, so absolutely know that those can help. Again, I've mentioned before, there's not necessarily one solution or one ingredient that is going to make acne completely go away, but a mixture of all these things, as well as professional treatment and, if necessary, dermatology level treatment, you will definitely start to see your skin improve. And so hopefully some of the tips that I shared with you in this video were helpful, and maybe hopefully helps you identify what you got going on with your skin. And if you have kind of the different kinds happening, there might need to be a different approach for different parts of your skin or different parts of your body in order to see this improve. So seek out professional consultation and treatments. Use some of those ingredients that I mentioned. I love you guys so much. I'll see you back here next week for another episode, and I hope you stay safe. Bye.